This might be the longest video I've made in a while. I picked this up. It's sort of like a deck of cards, and it was made by Highlights, you know, the old magazine Highlights. And it's a deck of cards of tongue twisters. And it's a cool little box here, see, because it opens up. It opens up like that, like a jewelry box. It's not like how, like a typical deck of cards box opens. And I found this, I actually picked this up at a Goodwill outlet, and I've really grown to love Goodwill outlets. Those are the Goodwills where you pick things up and their cost is directly based on their weight. And so if you have certain strategy in how you pick things up, you can actually get a lot of cool stuff for almost nothing. And this, of course, very light, weighed almost nothing, probably paid pennies for it. And I looked at this and I was like, this is just the cutest little thing. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I love to have. And what makes it great is, and I'll show you here, it's not just that every card has a tongue twister on it, but every card has this neat little, upside down, this neat little illustration. You see that? Like they all have an illustration on them. I was like, hell yes. I love this kind of stuff. And I'm actually going to do sort of what I have deemed a tongue twister challenge. And, you know, I make YouTube videos, so being well-spoken is important to me. I don't know how well-spoken I actually am. I try to be well-spoken. It actually, on the back of the highlights here, or no, it was actually on one of the cards. It's like the for parents to read card, where the parent reads it and says, here, this is what this whole thing is about. This is what it's for your child. And they actually mention elocution and pronunciation and how tongue twisters help with that. And they do help with that. And, you know, in this country in particular, although, you know, there are some kind of weird accents in England too, but we have kind of among certain circles, I don't know if you could say maybe social classes of Americans, we're not the best spoken. There's a lot of mumbling. There's a lot of kind of like mispronouncing words, not using elocution. You know, I grew up a poor farm kid. See, I'm not going to do well with these tongue twisters, but I grew up a poor farm kid, but you will never hear me use a double negative. You will never hear me mumble. I always try to speak very clearly, and if I lived in England, I'd probably be one of those people who kind of tried to talk in a kind of a posh accent, like a more posh accent than where I came from. Not to be pretentious, but just because I believe that being well-spoken is important. But, and I wanted to comment on Highlights too, because Highlights is, culturally, it feels like Highlights, at least among my generation, was kind of it had a reputation of being that birthday present that you really didn't want to get. You know, like maybe your grandmother or an aunt or something would buy you a subscription to Highlights, and you'd kind of roll your eyes, and like, even when the magazine came, maybe you would never actually, maybe you'd flip through it, but you wouldn't really use it. And I think part of the sentiment of that is, number one, getting a magazine subscription for your birthday or for a holiday, it's underwhelming because the older the adult hands you like the subscription card or whatever, saying, oh, you have a year's worth of subscription to this magazine. But the problem is, like, you're not getting anything in that moment. It has to be mailed to you. So, you know, it's kind of like delayed gratification. And then there's also, it also has kind of a reputation for being in a lot of doctor's offices and dentist offices. So not exactly the most fun place to be when you're a kid in the waiting room. So, you know, you're probably not thinking about, a Highlights magazine. You're probably sitting there kind of scared and wondering if you're going to get a shot or a cavity filled, or like, what the hell is wrong with me kind of thing. But, so, and then Highlights also is kind of, kind of self-righteous in a way because they do really lean into the education aspect of things. And I don't have anything wrong with kids' stuff being educational. I loved the educational shows most when I was a kid. But then again, I was a nerd. Like a typical kid may not like that. And see, kids are very, whether regardless of their innate intelligence, all kids are very good at knowing when they're being manipulated or when someone's trying to manipulate them into like doing something that they want to do and trying to make it fun, but like it's very clearly we're doing this because it's what's best for you. Basically like dipping celery in chocolate, I don't know, or in chocolate's too good actually for the metaphor, but basically trying to dress up something as fun when really at the end of the day the goal is some kind of education, like edutainment, and some people were better than that at others. Like Bill Nye the Science Guy back in the day was like a master at it. Beekman from Beekman's World. Those shows were fun to watch. And then again, I was a nerd, so I liked those shows. I don't know if typical kids like those shows. But then you had like Highlights, and I feel like Highlights wasn't quite as good at like, hey kids, we're going to learn stuff, but I'm going to make sure you have fun along the way. Highlights wasn't as good as at that, in my opinion, maybe. Partly because when you're a magazine, it's not as easy. But I know I'm blabbing on and on, but I have stuff that I want to say. Like this is a commentary channel, so. But I'm really glad I picked this up from the Goodwill outlet. And it's funny, when I first heard of the concept of a Goodwill outlet, I was kind of grossed out by it, like all of this stuff in big plastic tubs that have been touched by all kinds of people, and like, I always wear gloves when I go there, and it's like the concept is kind of gross when you first hear about it, but then once you've actually done it a couple of times, it turns out to be really fun. There are a few things in life that kind of fit that description, but anyway, I'm going to get into the tongue twisters here, and I don't know if I'll do all of them. I may stop at like the 15-minute mark or the 10-minute mark. We'll see. Shave a single shingle thin. Shave a single shingle thin. Shave a single shingle thin. Save a shingle. Ugh. You get the idea. The clothes moth's mouth closed. The clothes moth's mouth closed. The clothes moth's mouth closed. I'm not going to say them terribly fast, but this one's not illustrated. Was Ruth with Keith beneath the wreath? If Ruth was with Keith beneath the wreath, where is the wreath that Ruth and Keith were beneath? It does have a little bit of a illustration there, but too much going on in that one for a whole scene, a whole tableau. Theodore Thimble threw 3 thorny thistles. Did Theodore Thimble throw 3 thorny thistles? If Theodore Thimble threw 3 thorny thistles, where are the 3 thorny thistles Theodore Thimble threw? I feel like I did a good job there. I feel like that was a good one. Phil phoned frantically for further friendly pheasants. Phil phoned frantically for further friendly pheasants. I did good with that one, except for I did well with that one. See, I care about being well spoken. I did well with that one, except for the word frantically. I slightly mispronounced frantically. But if a Hottentot not taught another Hottentot taught to talk before the tot could toddle, ought the Hottentot be taught to say ought or not, or what ought to be taught her? Oh, God. See, this is fun. This is worth like a few pennies at a Goodwill outlet. And I laminated the box. I don't know how many of you noticed that. I always laminate stuff. And I laminated this with boxing tape so that it lasts, because that's part of what's so cool about this, is that it's this cool little swing open box. But let's see. Billy Biggs bought brown bread. That's fairly easy. Billy Biggs bought brown bread. How much dew would a dewdrop drop if a dewdrop could drop dew? That sounds similar to one we all know and love. I love the illustrations. I mean, that really adds to it. 6 little shavers sheared 6 sheep. Which way, worried William, would we whistle when wondering who? The sun shines on the sun shines on the shop signs. The sun shines on the shop signs. 6 slim, slippery snails did slowly seaward. We might get through all of these. Robert rents rockets to rowdy rodents. I feel like these are fairly easy, but then they are for kids. I love this, like, you know, you can tell something's old by the illustrations. This style of illustration and cartoon, you know, cartoon illustration, these were made in 1970, and you can really tell. They have that sort of 50s, 60s, early 70s style to them, where, like, all of the men have big noses and quickly quaint and quaint clipped quips. The breeze blew Brenda's blonde braids. Silly Sally swiftly shooed 7 silly sheep. The 7 silly sheep, Silly Sally shoot, Silly Sallied south. The flesh of fresh fluke is fresher and fleshier than the flesh of fresh flounder. A cup of proper coffee in copper pot. A cup of proper coffee in a copper coffee pot. Mr. Moore mailed more money to Meridian, Massachusetts. I worried that maybe not all of these were in here because it is the Goodwill outlet, and whenever you have something like this, like a game or something, it's almost inevitably missing pieces or cards. But there are enough of them that I felt like it didn't matter, and it pretty much fills the box. So if there are any missing, it's not many. 2 timid toads tried to trot to Trenton. 2 timid toads tried to trot to Trenton. Japanese jaguars jerk joyfully at Julia's Jade Jewelry. That's a clever one. Humble Harry hurries as he helps hunt harmless hedgehogs. Round the rough and rugged rocks the ragged rascal ran. 9 nice nieces nicely nibbled knickknacks. This thing's a work of art. It really is. Valerie values vim and vigor as she vies for victory. The Swiss wristwatch sank swiftly. Please prune the peanut plants. Frank threw Fred 3 free throws. Frank threw Fred 3 free throws. That 3 free is the hard part. Old oily oils, old oleatos. 5 fleas and flies floating from the flowers. We're almost done. Charlie challenged his chum to choose checkers or chess. Lemon liniment. You know, I love doing this stuff on video because, you know, there probably aren't very many full decks of these left, like complete decks of these left, and who knows what will happen to this one when I'm gone, but, you know, as long as YouTube is always up, there'll be a record of what this was. It preserves it for history. 12 tired tailors thoughtfully twisting twine. And you'd be surprised how many people approach me and say, you know, I'm so glad that you made this video of like this music box or this location or this event, or, you know, it's a big, historical preservation is actually a big drive for my channel. So Grace glanced greedily at the glistening, growing grapes. If they were glowing, they'd be radioactive. That would not be good. And then this is the parents don't have too much fun with this card. Highlights tongue twister cards are offered as a fun way to emphasize careful speech. Very important, like I said. Those who use them will be exercising and upgrading their speaking skills, an advantage in itself and a further benefit as an aid to correct spelling. It is hardly possible to place too much emphasis on the importance of careful enunciation, especially during the years when lifetime habits are being formed. I know that most of you are staring at my dirty thumbnail right now, aren't you? But you're going to have to deal with it. I do messy work outside. I don't always clean my fingernails all the time. So you're going to have to deal with it. Do not use the tongue twisters as an exercise in sight reading. The child should be familiar with the words before attempting to read the card rapidly with careful enunciation. See, at least this was before Hooked on Phonics kind of screwed everything up. Because, and I've said this before, Hooked on Phonics tried to get kids to sound out words by syllable, when honestly, when I learned to read, I just learned to read the words more as symbols in and of themselves rather than sounding them out. I mean, sounding them out was part of them. As you're learning them, you realize, oh yeah, that's why the word looks like that. But for me, it was more about memorizing the word as a whole, almost like a pictogram, like how the Chinese or the Asian cultures would. But anyway, this was a great little buy. Just the cutest little thing. And it, like I said, cost me almost nothing. Happy to own it. Absolutely happy to own it. And I'm happy to share it with you. So this video is not for kids. It's for adults who were kids maybe around this time. I mean, it was before my time, but I mean, I don't think I've said anything bad in this video, but none of my videos are meant for kids. I always mark them as not meant for kids. But yeah, they're fun, and I absolutely love it. In the comments, how about you guys tell me your favorite tongue twister of all time, if you have one. I mean, you might say, well, Captain Unusual, I don't have a favorite tongue twister because I'm not a freaking lunatic. And I sympathize with that. I don't have a favorite tongue twister either. I have a favorite riddle. I have a favorite, other things that other people wouldn't necessarily have a favorite of, like verbally. Favorite verbal thing. Can't think of them right now. Like those sentences that have every letter of the alphabet. Things like that. Although I don't have a favorite one of those, but that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. But anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to Captain Unusual. I really do this kind of stuff a lot of the time. This is a very Captain Unusual type video. Antiques, history, art, science, hobbyism, hobbies, just a lot of that kind of mashed together. But anyway, subscribe if you will. It's cool to do another longer video like this. I've been making a lot of shorts, but long form videos are kind of where I got my start as a YouTuber of the previous decade. So I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.